Michigan-born singer-songwriter, musician, actor and overall rock legend Iggy Pop returns with his 17th solo studio album along with contribution from Queens of the Stone Age members Josh Homme and Dean Fertitta and Arctic Monkeys drummer Matt Helders. As could be surmised by the title, the album deals with Iggy's reflection on his life as a music artist, studying his own legacy and where he stands now in today's music world. The overall result is actually a pretty decent album with many high points to be found. The opening track is pretty simple in regards to its structure, and the instruments pretty subdued and controlled, which is a sign of what's to come on the album. Electric guitars that provide both rhythm and melody, buzzing synth melody that matches that of the chorus along with a guitar melody lick included, simple drum inclusion, hints of a synth brass section and piano in the solo. The lyrics read as Iggy realising that his time in the spotlight isn't going to be going on for much longer, and therefore he has this desire to invest into the listener's ears and so that he sticks with them for as long as possible. It's got a memorable chorus and Iggy's delivery is pretty decent too. Gardenia has a sweet bass riff with brief spurts of electric guitar in the verse that becomes more prominent in the chorus and later on in the track, along with staccato effects hanging in the background and a simple drum piece that becomes more expressive as the track progresses. Delivered by Iggy's rather seductive and spaced out vocals, he recants his story about being enraptured by this sultry lady of the night, and it comes off as every bit as sexy as Iggy wants it to. American Valhalla opens up on what sounds like a xylophone melody before bursting out with a gruff buzzing bass riff that matches the same melody, followed by a synth keyboard that echoes the vocal delivery and electric guitar. The lyrics suggest that of the title, a worn down bitter veteran who's seeking his rewards and glory yet seems to remain empty-handed, repeating the line "I've nothing but my name," a haunting and sobering sentiment, but everything here feels kinda thin. The instrumentals don't have a great deal of drive, the lyrics lack a certain grit, and the vocal delivery would have benefited with a tinge of bitterness. Instead they're delivered straight and the message doesn't really hit home. In the Lobby comes off as a self-reflective piece where Iggy references not only his past escapades of drinking, sex and other misdemeanors, but also his mortality, and questions whether his departure from not only the music scene but the world in general would have some sort of impact. With a mix of rhythmic and melodic electric guitar, a bass line that just sort of hangs there and doesn't do much, the instrumentation is sort of underwhelming, but as a result the lyrics just stand out in how good they are. Sunday comes complete with an infectious and highly addictive dance groove, constant drum beat, bouncing bass lines. It mixes elements of dance pop and soft rock elements, and complete with background vocalists, it's a brilliant piece. The song reads as Iggy's age catching up with him and he longs for the working week to be over so that Sunday can roll around and he can use that as his day of rest. But in the back of his mind there's this lingering reminder that it's not going to last very long, and very soon he's going to have to resume his work on Monday, before the vocals trail off at the end and we're left with an orchestral string arrangement to cap the song off. A fantastic track and probably my favourite on the whole album. Vulture starts off as this simple descriptive piece about the animal that's delivered by a croaky vocal delivery, very low, rumbling and full of grit over a spaghetti western style instrumental, before we get to the conclusion of the track, which could be interpreted as this vulture being somebody affiliated with a huge corporate record company whose only interest is to reap, claw and scavenge whatever they can from the music artist who's drawing in all of the money, and the vulture is just lurking above his prey. It's without a doubt one of the strongest songs on the album, and one that instantly sticks out in this 9-track album. Then we take a bit of a downward turn on the song German Days, easily the worst track on the album. It starts off as this punchy bass heavy instrumental with an electric guitar lick to boot before changing in tempo and continuing the heaviness, only it feels like it's dragging its heels and it isn't very fulfilling. Plus the lyrical skeletalness about Iggy ordering room service, I think, which is kind of out of place on this album, and I'm just left feeling highly underwhelmed by this song. Chocolate Drops reads as this imparting of advice onto perhaps the younger generation of musicians and singers about if they go through areas of pain and exasperation to not worry and take it in their stride, but ultimately no matter what they do, even the shittiest of work will result in chocolate drops. Perhaps a metaphor about being able to release anything and it still sells no matter how bad it is. With church bells, piano, rigid guitars, ever-present bass line and with a hint of plucked strings, it's an alright track but doesn't really do much for me. Lastly, the song Paraguay, which reads as Iggy's recognition that he's done with everyone and everything around him, and so he decides on leaving everything behind, going off on a wicked tirade at the end of the track on everyone who's ever talked smack about the guy. Full of bitterness and spite, delivered with the sense of frustration that's been building up for a while, the instrumentation doesn't quite match the tone that I think the song was aiming for, starting off very low key with layered vocals that introduce the song a cappella before a rhythmic guitar is brought in, along with the drums and bass line and hints of piano, keyboard and acoustic guitar before the instrumentation changes direction and becomes a more staccato, punchy catchy delivery. It's a nice change up to go with the spoken monologue, and although I don't think it's a superb track by any stretch of the imagination, and I do think it kind of ends abruptly, it's not bad. There have been a few comparisons between this album and David Bowie's Swan Song earlier this year, and there's plenty of evidence to connect the dots in this regard. Iggy's continuous hints towards leaving the music scene altogether, especially as the rumour mill has it that this is to be his final solo studio album, and what's going to be remembered of him once he leaves this world. There are poignant moments in the album delivered by well presented instrumentals of a varying nature, encompassing moody moments along with the more upbeat pieces. This gives the album a stark contrast that isn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Some songs can be somewhat underwritten, and I do feel the instrumentation could have been more visceral and have a lot more power behind it, but Iggy proves that there's still plenty of life left in the guy, even if his stay in the music spotlight is drawing closer to an end. Overall, I score this album a 77 out of 100.